first thing that they would ask me, what's your opinion on the British soldiers in Afghanistan, in Helmand province of Afghanistan? I'll be very honest with you, I had no idea where or what Helmand was. Why would I know, as an 18-year-old British kid, why would I know where Helmand province of Afghanistan is? The headlines that I had to deal with, from tiara to titillation, Miss England, MUS, from burqa to bikini. There was crazy headlines, and I never see them write Church of England, Miss England. That year that I was Miss England, I think I grew up more than I had done my entire life. And I did this in the real world media. I've been an activist and a fighter. I'm not an activist because of trend.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of What's Brown Got to Do with It. So my guest today is Hammasa Kohistani, who is a British-Afghan who has worn many hats, from modelling and Miss England to championing women's rights and mental health advocacy. And today she's also a thriving entrepreneur. I'm so happy to have you here. Your own multifaceted journey and unwavering commitment has made her a powerful force to change the world. So welcome, Hammasa. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I believe you're in the UAE right now. How's that going for you?
I am indeed. I'm enjoying it very much. I've always had a love for Dubai. I actually lived here when I was very, very young. Visited Abu Dhabi. I was here in the early 90s, I think 1990. So at that time, it was just Deira and Jumeirah. Like Jumeirah was getting built. So yeah, it's nice to come back. Every time I come back, I feel like it's a brand new city.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I've been here for about 13 years now, and I've just seen it grow. It's insane. You don't recognize it so much anymore.
Absolutely.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about your journey. You moved from Afghanistan to England. You've done the whole Miss England thing. You've gone into modeling. How did that journey start for you?
I moved from Russia. I was born in Uzbekistan.
Right, okay.
Which was part of the old USSR. I've also lived in Moscow and Kiev. And then moved to UK. And that's because my parents were studying in Russia, where they got scholarships as war reparations from Afghanistan.
Right.
And they got married and then moved. And while they were in their last years of studies, I was born there. So then we went back to Afghanistan and the war broke out. And for us, the natural place to go was go back to what my parents knew, which was obviously where they studied. They knew the language. So we lived there for a little bit. And then in 97 is when I moved to the UK. And I was around 9 years old. And I didn't speak any English. It was very difficult. We came over as refugees. So it was a very difficult time, readjusting to a whole new culture and language, and being the new kid at school, not dressing the same as the other kids, not fitting in. It was difficult to navigate. To then fast forward 10 years later, and I'm representing England in Miss World. It was a hell of a journey to get from A to B.
Yeah, of course. I mean, imagine you went from that to breaking literal cultural barriers. Because I remember, at that time, it was a really, really big thing to have, someone from a South Asian background to be on such a huge platform. Like Miss World is a huge platform. So, when we do talk about modeling and representation, even obviously it's evolved. We've seen many South Asians win Miss World and Miss Universe. But at that time when you were actually there, it was a lot different. How do you think representation in the fashion and beauty industry has evolved over the years, and especially for individuals such as ourselves with diverse backgrounds?
I think the whole industry is obviously a lot more inclusive now. However, I wanted to just point something out, that I'm actually not of South Asian, I'm Central Asian. So there is even less representation. People like me, because the Desi community is huge. In the UK especially. There's a lot of Indian and Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan girls who are more accepted because they have a wider community. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
comparison between the Indian or the Pakistani community to the Afghan community.
Afghan.
So,
Yeah.
me being an Afghan, I not only had to break the barriers or go against the stereotypes of the Western norms and
Mm.
standards, but even in the South Asian industry, such as the Asiana magazine or Asian Bride, or
Mm.
even then, I was the odd one out. I was
Mm.
Afghan, and they weren't Afghans at all. Like before 9/11, I had to explain to people where Afghanistan was or what it was.
Wow.
Half the people didn't even know that we existed or
Mm.
where exactly we're located. So it was a double barrier for me to break into,
Mm.
and to establish myself and to come across or show my worth that I was too capable just because I'm different. Um,
Mm.
and I feel like we've come leaps and bounds. And I would personally have to say, I know it's probably cliche and may not be taken so well, but for me, it was actually the rise of the Kardashians that.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. It's not very conventional, but up until that point, whenever I went to castings, whatever I did, they would look at me and say, "Oh my God, she's so exotic," with a disgust in their faces,
Mm.
because my exoticness made them feel uncomfortable.
Mm.
They couldn't put me in a category. They couldn't figure me out. Again, if I was of an Indian background or a Pakistani background, they would have
Mm.
probably found
Mm.
it easier to pigeonhole me or put me
Yeah.
in a certain category. But I didn't. I didn't look like those girls either. So it was like, oh my God, she's so exotic. Like, ugh, kind of like, so I was always booked as like the token brown person on sets. I was never the main model. It was always like, you had your token black person, your token Asian,
Yeah.
and I was that. And then the Kardashians came on the scene, and Kim blew up. And then obviously the sisters followed that, and they all look like me, or I look like the
Yeah.
features, the coloring, the hair, the eyes. And so I started getting the bookings. It's like, oh my God, she looks like Kylie. Oh my God, she looks like Kendall. She looks like Kim. Then more, and that became the convention. The beauty standards changed
Mm.
from the English rose of a very pale, very in typical English rose look. They started going for more curvaceous women, for darker hair women, for darker eyes women, and that became the standards of beauty, which then allowed me, people like me, to
Mm.
then get the main jobs, to be the main model of a shoot, not just be a background or a prop
Mm.
or the diversity check.
So was that, I mean, all that happened post Miss World, or was I think that was post Miss World.
That
So
was
didn't
first.
that being like Miss England and being on that platform, did that not open kind of doors for you, or do you think that was a bit of a barrier for you in itself?
I think what people tend to, I mean, myself didn't understand before, hence why I
Mm.
did into the pageant, because I thought the modeling and the pageants are kind of hand in hand. They're about a
Mm.
beautiful girl. They're completely different things. And
Okay.
if, in terms of modeling, if you're a pageant girl, you're not respected as a model. And in
Right.
terms of pageant girls, majority of them are not models. They don't come from modeling backgrounds at all. Because
Mm.
as a model, you're a blank canvas. You don't have a
Right.
personality. You don't have a say. You are a
Right.
canvas, and they dress you, and they make your hair and makeup, and you
Mm.
emote an emotion like an actress.
Mm.
You are acting. Whereas as a pageant queen, you're a personality. You have a
Mm.
say, hence why you see the stereotypical perception of beauty queens wanting world peace.
World peace. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's about having something to say. It's about having a
Right.
voice. It's about fighting for something. It's about having a cause. So they actually are very different industries. And
Mm.
so me winning the pageant didn't necessarily help my modeling. It was
Right.
like, oh, she's a beauty queen. Okay, well, she can do modeling. Oh, she's a model too. I actually started modeling when I was 14. I won Miss England when
Oh.
I was 18. So there was a
Oh
4 year
wow.
gap between my first modeling gig
Mm.
and the time that I became Miss England. So I started modeling at 14, but again, I did gap kids, and I was the token brown girl because they had like the typical
Yeah.
kids that were English or
Yeah.
American, and then they had a black kid, and then they had a Far East Asian kid, and then they
Mm.
had me. And then I would do the odd jobs here and there. And then from about 15, 16 onwards, I started modeling for the Asian industry in UK.
Mm.
And by Asian, it's like the Asian Bride, Asiana magazines, and things like the
German.
Asian bridal industry, which is quite big.
Mm.
It's very lucrative because marriages are still thriving in the Asian community. So it was always that's the kind of work I did. I wasn't fully accepted into the mainstream. And also being so young, my parents felt more comfortable me doing more of the Asian bridal things because it was more, they felt that was more protected, or I wasn't going to get
Right.
told to
Yeah.
take my clothes off. So at the time that I was at school, they just felt more comfortable letting me do that kind of modeling. So
Yeah.
then it was, I finished school and it was, what do I do now? So I'm going to go to college, but what about my career? And that's when I started looking around, and I was actually searching for modeling agencies when the pageant website came up. Bear in mind,
Right.
Google didn't exist.
Oh, yeah.
This was
True.
2004, 5, 2005. So it was just the website Ask Jeeves. I don't know if you
Oh
remember that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
yeah, the pageant
Yeah.
thing that was
The
on.
butler guy, yeah.
Exactly. So I was searching like, how can I find the modeling agency? Like, how can I get signed? Because I had enough pictures that I felt like, okay, there's a level of professionalism here. Maybe I
Mm.
can approach an agency. And I came across the pageant website. So when I read the criteria, it's like you had to be a female. It's like, okay, I am. You have to be this tall. Okay, I am. You have to be British. And I was, by that time, we had gotten British citizenship.
Mm.
Um, and like the criteria were quite vague. It didn't say you had to be English, you had to,
Yeah.
been born there. That's not the criteria. So the rest of it I fit. And I was with my friend, and I just looked, I was like, should I do this? Should I apply? I was like, yeah, why not? It might, again, I didn't know that this is not necessarily my entrance into the modeling, mainstream modeling
Right.
industry. I thought it's the same
Yeah.
thing. If I go to the pageant, I'll become a model. It's like, yeah, why
Mm.
not? It might open some doors. I applied to the pageant. The next day I got a call, and it's like, we really like your, so I had to submit a picture and a little bio about myself. And they said that we like you, fit the criteria, we like you, look, we think you do well, but you can't enter Miss England directly if you don't go into a regional pageant. And there's one
Right.
tomorrow that falls into your area.
Oh wow.
So I'm just, what? Like, I'm doing a pageant tomorrow? It's like, yeah, these are the details. So if you can get yourself to that pageant tomorrow, you just need an evening gown and you need to show up. And there I was on a bus at 18 with my friend with a dress in a backpack. Uh, and it was actually in Wembley. I don't know if you're familiar with the area. I went to the pageant, and my mom didn't even know that I had gone to this pageant. It was just me and my friend just doing kiddie things. And a few hours later, I think what helped me win that was my modeling experience. I had a
Right.
confidence
Okay.
on stage, I had a presence, I wasn't camera shy. Whereas a lot of
Right.
the other
Yeah.
girls that were there were had never done something like that or had done other pageants, but it's different.
Mm.
I was just like, I'd
Mm.
walk in with my head up high on stage, very confident because I had done modeling 4 years prior.
Mm.
And then I won that. A few hours later, I was announced Miss Maya, which was like a local pageant to that area. And that's when I was like, okay, what have I done? I am now going to England and Liverpool in
Yeah.
like a month's time. What am I going to tell my parents? Because my one fear was the bikini round. I
Right.
wasn't allowed to
Yeah.
shoot lingerie and swimwear. We didn't do bikini round for Miss Maya, but I thought that for Miss England we're going to have to do a bikini round.
Yeah.
My parents are going to kill me. My parents are going to kill me. So the first thing I called my mom, it's like, Mom, I want a pageant. She's like, where are you? You have school tomorrow. Come home right now. So that's how I fell into the pageant. So it was nothing like, I know a lot of pageant girls actually enter hundreds of pageants. There's a lot of, it's a very vigorous
Mm.
training. Even our wave, like it's a certain wave that you need to do. Like everything is very trained. And I had none of it. It just happened by fluke. And then 2 months later, I went to, by that time, we got accustomed to the idea My parents accepted it, and I still had this fear of, what if I go to the pageant in Liverpool and they
Mm.
make me wear a bikini on stage? What do I do? Lucky for me, that year they completely got rid of the bikini round and made
Oh,
it into a
wow.
sportswear round. So I was in shorts and a t-shirt, which is something I dress anyway. And
Yeah.
so that was such a relief. And again, because I wasn't English, I went with the mindset that I'm not going to win anyway. So I'm just going to go and have
Mm.
the best time. I'm going to enjoy this and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to soak up the experience. It's an opportunity. And I think that's what made me stand out, because I was on stage grinning from ear to ear without an
Yeah.
ounce of nerves. Like, I made it, here I am. And I think that's what they liked. I owned it. But that
Who
wasn't
who was
because
your support network there? Who was there with you?
my mom and dad, my brother, who's now
Oh.
living in Dubai, and my friend who helped me enter. It was just like them four and me. And every time I came on stage, I remember I didn't even have a mobile phone then. So I had my dad gave me his phone, and my mom had hers, and I would message them from backstage like, "Do I look okay?" And they would message me like, "Oh,
Oh.
you look fine. Just smile. Just smile and be happy. You look fine." That's how I made it through that pageant, and then it was a 2-3 day event. I did a
Mm.
dance. I won Miss Talent. And my mom kept saying, I hope you get to the top 12, and that's all we want. Like, we're so happy that you're here. Top 12 would be good for your confidence. Da, da, da. So then when I won Miss Talent, that made me go into top 12. And I was like, okay, now I can fully relax because that pressure's
Mm.
off. I made my mom proud. I got to where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then after that, they announced me as the winner. We did a question and answer round. And I think it was my answer because I had a standing ovation. I've always been good at speaking.
Mm.
And then they announced me as the winner, and then it just
Wait,
went.
what was your question? What was the question?
The question was, why would I make a better Miss England in comparison to the
Right.
girls behind me? They were right there.
Right. Were you like, are you kidding me? Are you looking at them?
What makes you different to them? Why should we pick you and not them? And I said, I'm standing here today as the picture of what Britain is about. I'm diverse, I'm multicultural, I'm a representation of who we are.
I
We're a nation
love
of different,
that.
like, the pageant was 2 months after the London bombings. London bombings
Right, yeah.
happened on July 7th. I
Mm.
was doing the pageant on September 2nd. So it was 2 months, and there was a huge, like, media frenzy,
Mm.
Islamophobia, segregation of the communities. And I was like, I am a symbol of what best of both worlds can do.
Mm.
I'm a British Muslim, and yet I could be, I'm British and I'm a Muslim, and I'm representing
Mm.
both. And this is what this nation's about. It's not about the segregation. It's not about the separation. It's not them and us. It's we, and I am that
Yeah.
we. This is who I am. I've been given this opportunity. I've been given a platform, that I'm very true to my roots and my heritage. And when those things come together, it's a beautiful procedure, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful journey. And everybody really felt that, because there was a real notion of us and them in the media and separation. So I think it was the right message. It's what people wanted to see. It was Muslims being presented in a positive way in the
Mm.
media after 2 months of just like a scapegoating. So
Mm.
then after that answer, it was like the other girls did theirs, and then I was announced as the winner. But then all hell broke loose. It was
Yeah.
insane. I've never experienced anything like it. And it was just, I did 385 interviews in the first month.
Oh, wow.
385 interviews, because I have a
Oh.
count of them. I had to do them in Russian, in Farsi, and in English in rotation.
Oh,
And the
wow.
questions that I would get asked would blow anyone's mind to this day. And I don't even know how they expected an 18-year-old girl to know these things. First thing that they would ask me, what's your opinion on the British soldiers in
Oh, my
Afghanistan,
goodness.
in Helmand province of Afghanistan? I'll be very honest with you. I had no idea where or what Helmand
Mm.
was. I wasn't born in Afghanistan, nor I lived there for about 3 months. Why would
Right,
I
okay.
know, as an 18-year-old British kid, why would I
Yeah.
know where Helmand province of Afghanistan is? Would they, the headlines that I had to deal with, from tiara to titillation, Mus England, MUS.
Wow.
From burqa to bikini.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Actually, I think I remember that one.
yeah, there was crazy headlines, and I never see them write Church of England, Miss England.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that? Orthodox Catholic Miss England.
Yeah.
They're writing these things
It's so
about me.
true.
I'm
Yeah.
still an
Because,
18-year-old queen.
yeah.
The-
But
I, but
again, it's because it's so new and it was
it's
so
so
unheard of.
controversial, yes, and that's why I had to do so many interviews. Up until me and post me, nobody knows about Miss England. And
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I was thinking about this just yesterday and I don't know. I
yeah,
actually don't know. I knew you, but I think you were so significant to, and we'll talk about some stereotypes
mhm,
after. And I'm sure there was a lot of backlash that came with that too
insane.
from, our own community, whether it's the Desi community of the Afghani community, because and all the stereotypes that you had to probably fight against, and the fact that your parents were so supportive of you. I think there's also this misconception that people would expect that, oh, if they're from Afghanistan, they must be a certain way and really strict, and how would they, but people don't realize that Afghanistan, in the 70s and 80s was thriving.
Exactly.
People, the fact that they were away for education is actually just a true depiction of what life for Afghanistanis was like in that time, right?
Precisely. And this is why I think I had such a media attention, because the British media is legendary to try and bring
Yeah.
people down. We all know this. And I think what they tried to do with me was that, precisely as you said, they went outside a mosque in Bradford
Oh my God.
and with my pictures in the newspaper showing them the imam. What do you think of her? And all these
Oh
people that
my
are coming
God.
from Jummah prayer, and it's like, this is a Muslim Miss England, and they're making reports for like Sky, ITV News, and it's like, and of course those people are going to turn around and say, we condemned her from Islam, this is blasphemous. Then they would come and stand outside my house because every time they met my parents, my mom's got a master's in law and my
Mm,
dad has PhD in engineering. They're
wow.
both very, very academic, eloquent, educated people. Um, and they were expecting my dad to come out with a big beard, a salwar kameez, my mom wearing a salwar kameez, and you could see the literal disappointment
Mm,
in these reporters' faces, because the way they wanted to depict me is that this Cinderella story, that I came from this barbaric background of Afghanistan, living in caves, and
yeah.
British government and the British public saved me, and now I'm this
Yeah, the
beauty
rescuers.
queen. Yeah, and there you go, because I have come to England. And every time they would come to, so they were standing outside our house. My dad took out the bins, and there was just, he was getting papped, because they wanted to show how, like, this is what they're like, but this is what we did for them. And they weren't
Yeah.
getting that, and they were getting very frustrated. So yeah, it was a lot of stereotypical, and again from our own community, because it was so
Mm,
new. First of all, now with social media and stuff, there are so many
mm,
models from different backgrounds, so on. But at that time, when social media didn't exist, especially
mm,
the Afghan community, I can't answer for the other South Asian communities. They don't understand what modeling is. Modeling
yeah.
doesn't exist. So unfortunately, the way they looked at modeling was like, modeling's prostitution. You
Yeah.
sell
I mean,
yourself.
I think that was a lot of communities, full stop. There were
Mhm.
certain professions that were very much frowned upon within our
Absolutely.
communities.
So I got it a lot. So obviously there I was modeling, but when I was modeling up until that point, people didn't really know. I would do the odd Asian magazine, or like, it wasn't on a global level for
Yeah.
people to know. So no one really got involved in what I did. But as I became Miss England, and it was all over the world news, from like Times Australia to Times Canada,
Yeah.
I was on the front page of Times India. Like, every newspaper you can imagine, I was on their front page.
Yeah.
For about a week, like, in circulation. Well, we were driving home from Liverpool to London, and we were going straight to my grandmother's house, because this is after I won. And by the time we got to my grandmother's house, because again, when internet didn't exist on the phones for that for
Mm.
us to see the news. So by the time we got back to London and went to my grandmother's house for lunch, they told us that every news bulletin from 8 a.m. to the time we got there, which was about 4 p.m., I was in the headlines.
Oh, wow.
A British Muslim Afghan Hammasa Kohistani became the first woman to be crowned Miss England. She will represent, like, he was in the news every hour on the hour. And I had no idea.
Mm.
I was in a car with my parents, like, what did I just do? Because the amount of, like, I completely broke down. I was overwhelmed
Mm.
with the attention and with the media scrutiny. I couldn't go to, I had to, my college called me in. So it was September. I won the pageant September 2nd. I was supposed to start college September 7th
Oh,
to do
wow.
my A levels. I had done my AS level. I was doing my second year A
Right.
levels
Okay.
to then go to university. My college called me down and said, we're asking you not to attend this year and defer
Oh,
because
wow.
we have so much press outside every single day that is going to be a big distraction for you and for the other students. And for safety reasons, we're asking you to defer the year. So I had to drop, and I had to because I was going to Miss World for a year.
Mm.
I was doing press and I was traveling around. I could not have kept up with my A levels.
Mm.
So I had to defer a year. I went back and finished, and I have a degree now. But at that time, I like my college because of the media influx. They didn't feel safe
Mm.
because of me. There was media reporters standing outside asking the kids, "Does she smoke? Does she
Oh,
hang out? Does
wow.
she skive lessons?" Like they were asking, and kids being kids, they would say things, or they were just
Yeah.
looking for things to like tarnish me, find something about me. It was
Yeah.
crazy. And I wasn't happy. I was not happy. It's like, what did I get myself into? My life is over.
Mm.
Peace, no, and I wasn't given any training. Miss England doesn't train you. Miss England doesn't give you protection. Miss England doesn't have pageants in the UK are not the same as pageants in India or Venezuela or the
Mm.
Philippines, where there is a whole PR team for it. They
Yeah.
train the girls. There are schools you attend. I remember Miss Philippines in Miss World saying, "Did you guys know that there are 7 different steps to a smile?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had no idea, but that's the kind of training those girls get. I had
Mm.
none of it. They threw me in the deep end and said, sink or swim. And
Wow.
the only reason that I managed to maintain my image, I managed to not say the wrong thing, I managed to have such a career that I have, is because of my parents. They stood by my side and they guided me every step of the way. My dad would sit down, pull out the map of Afghanistan. He would teach me the battles, the history, the geography, the wars, the politics. My mom would teach me the traditions, the culture, the religion, the family, they were just both of them in my ear, like,
Mm.
say this, don't say that, be careful, avoid this. My media training and everything that I know is from me and my family.
That's
Nobody
a
ever had.
really young age
I
to
know.
actually take all of that in. So clearly, you must have grown up a lot quicker than
I
most
felt,
18-year-olds.
yeah, absolutely. That year that I was Miss England, I think I grew up more than I had done my entire life, and since then, uh, I I had no choice. I became the symbol of young British Muslims.
Mm.
I'm not a practicing Muslim. I
Mm.
respect our religion. I have, but I'm not someone that's follows it to a T. So I can't say that
Mm.
I'm picture perfect Muslim. None of that. But they put me in that position. I became the
Mm.
spokesperson for young Muslim women, especially. And then I got slack for that from our community. Who is she to
Mm.
represent us? Look at the way she's dressed.
Mm.
Look at, it's like, I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for it.
Mm.
The media is making me this way, and I have no choice.
Mm.
And then after that, the prime minister came and said a few things, and I had a few criticisms. And the prime minister at that time was Tony Blair. I
Mm.
made a few comments and that went all sensationalized in the press again. Like it was just the most craziest time for me. And I'll have to be very honest, I had no support from Miss England or any of it. They didn't even know
Mm.
how to deal with this kind of attention because, like we both said, up until me, nobody cared about the pageant.
Mm.
So the amount of media attention that they received, they were also overwhelmed and they didn't know how to handle
Mm.
it. And they just left me to it.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you're an advocate, a big advocate for women's mental health. Um, And listening to your story, does that, some of that derive from like your own experiences at that time? Like where did that,
Absolutely.
what inspired you to become, you know, an advocate for women's mental health?
My advocacy started from 2005, like I said, because I didn't ask to be put in that position, because at
Mm,
18, I'll be very honest, it's not like I'm not going to take credit for that. It's like, yeah, I went in with that mindset. No, I didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. I got put in that position. But once I did, and when I spoke out, I actually spoke sense. And when I
right.
spoke sense and I spoke right, is when I realized that no, what I'm saying is making a difference. So I should put more thought into what I say. I believe the things I said. I think what the media and people found endearing about me was that
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't this media training. It was very raw,
Mm,
very real, very authentic, and innocent way of saying things or fighting for things, because it came from the
mm,
heart. And it was who I was, what I believed in.
mm,
I've seen my mother go through wars. I've seen my grandmother go through wars. My mental health side is a little bit separate. I do
mm.
mental health videos to help young Asian women, but my activism is for women's rights of Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And because I understand that there aren't any role models for me to look up to. I've never seen
Mm,
a girl that looked like me on TV. I never seen
yeah.
a girl like me to speak up or to make it acceptable and okay that you could be from a different culture, you could dress differently, but you could still be successful, or you could still be
Mm,
respected. And then when I was in that position, I started noticing that there are other women that are looking up to me. I'm giving them
mm,
hope. I've broken these barriers. And because they see me do it, they feel like they can too. And that's a great privilege and honor, a position to be in.
mm,
So I wanted to do right by them. And that's how my
mm.
journey into advocacy started. I started then speaking up, which is why I spoke up against the prime minister. If you Google
Yeah.
those articles, they come up. It's like
Yeah.
Muslim Miss England criticizes British
Yeah.
prime minister.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I didn't don't scapegoat the Muslim community for a couple things that a few terrorists doing, which is exactly what's going on in Palestine right now. Don't
Right. Yeah.
scapegoat the Palestinian people and put them in the same bracket as Hamas.
Hamas. Yeah.
This was my fight, and it's crazy to see that we've done a full circle and we're still having the same fight, which is so unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
And
that's what it was.
even with social media now, you know, you're talking about also a time that it started, like you said, there was the newspapers or the media was social media for us, like all our information came from them. But even with social media now and access to so many things, the fact that we're still having these conversations, I mean,
Mhm.
it's a bit worrying as well. Like, what will it take to change those narratives?
And for people like us, it's very evident to see. So people who you see now on social media talking about, oh, stop the violence, it's like, well, where were you? I've been saying
Mm,
stop the violence for the past 20 years. Where were
yeah,
you? Why do you
yeah,
care now? Because the victims are blonde and blue-eyed?
yeah.
Is that why you
And
care?
also, it's also, I probably get annihilated for saying this, but for a lot of people, it's also just joining the bandwagon, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
It's the
I need
class.
to be seen to be, yeah,
It's trendy. That's what it is. It's
exactly,
let's follow a hashtag. It's trending.
yeah,
I want to be a part of this, which what frustrates me, because there's so much misinformation for people
mm,
who have zero context. And when
yeah,
but those people don't know my journey. So when they see me in the same light. They don't understand that
mhm,
I've been doing this before social media existed.
yeah,
I did this
yeah,
in the real world media. I've been an activist and a fighter. I'm not
yeah,
an activist because of trend.
yeah,
So this is where my journey started, and that's where I started working and fighting, especially for Afghan women. Because my mom is my biggest inspiration. She's one of the most strongest women I know, and both of my grandmothers also. And
mm,
I am tired of our people having to deal with war. I don't want my kids to be born and be brought up in a nation where their mothers
yeah,
is at war. How many more generations of our people are going to endure this? So that's when I started speaking up for women's rights.
yeah. So let's talk about some of like the key initiatives or the projects that you've been involved in, like to actually support these causes, because you've done quite a lot of work on this.
I mean,
What
advocacy.
have been some of the most memorable or the most impactful that you feel that, there's room for people to join here. Like, these are the ones that are the closest to my heart. These are the ones that I feel make the most impact to help people. If people like listening want to get involved, what are some of those key projects?
I've been talking about obviously women's rights for a long time, but there wasn't. Afghanistan went into a bit of a, well, the American soldiers were there and so on. So there was a little bit of freedom for women. They started getting education was around. So I kind of didn't understand. For a long time, my parents always said to me, don't forget your roots. Don't forget where you come from. We're Afghan and so on, so on. And I'd always be a bit resentful towards that. Like, you should, this isn't who, it's not, that shouldn't be the reason that I'm getting identified. Like, that is not the whole of me. My identity isn't because I'm from Afghanistan. That's a part of my identity.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that until August 2021, when the Taliban came back and took over Afghanistan. And from that point onwards, I want to make sure that my kids know that their grandmother was a proud Afghan. I am so
Yeah.
proud of who I am and my heritage, because my identity has always been in crisis. Our flag is taken down, our nationality is taken down. Everything that they ruined our nation, like they broke us down. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand why my parents felt so protective over it, because I've always grown up in the West. I was in Russia, I was in Ukraine, I was in UK, and it's like, yeah, I'm from Afghanistan, but that's back home and I'm here and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But now, whenever anyone's like, I'm Afghan, I am Afghan, that's who I am. UK is my host country, and thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Afghan. I'm so protective over it because I understand what it means to be an Afghan. And that's why it's very significant for me. My activism, actually, I realized how much help I managed to, how many people I managed to reach. I was sharing information about people getting out when the airport was getting attacked, when people were jumping
Yeah.
planes and things. I was getting firsthand information from the Home Office UK. I was getting firsthand information from different embassies. I was getting firsthand information from Indian government. Like, we have
Mm.
visas for Afghans, we'll help them out. So I was able to actually save lives. I had people message me saying, you posted that there's going, like, someone informed me that they putting bombs around, like, the where the
Mm.
British government is getting British citizens out. Make sure you tell them not to go to that hotel. Started posting that, please stop, avoid that area. They're, putting bombs out. And someone messaged me, like, my dad was en route there. I saw your message. I called him. I said, turn around. He turned around. There was an explosion. You saved my dad's life
Oh,
because of a
wow.
post. Again, there were some girls that were hiding in a basement messaging me, help us. We're in a basement. We're scared. Like, I had direct contact with these people. And I realized that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I
Mm.
lost weight. I went into the survivor's guilt consumed me.
Mm.
And I felt like if I put my phone down and go to sleep, there will be 3 people that will die because of me, because I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that because I was sharing information constantly.
Yeah.
It
I
was the
remember when you were
hardest
doing
part.
that, because I think I reached out to you at that time as well, and I messaged you for something. I don't remember, but I remembered the information. A lot of my information firsthand was actually coming from you and watching you, and it was so heartbreaking. But just circling back to your point about, now that you say so proudly that I'm Afghani and everything else is kind of secondary, it's also because, I mean, I'm is it because a lot of this misconception of the stereotype now, when people meet somebody from Afghanistan and all they think instant is the Taliban. But back to my previous point, there was a whole life in Afghanistan before the whole the Taliban took over, before they destroyed Afghanistan. And so, is that something that also makes you want to be like, this is actually what Afghanistan looks like? That is not what it is.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that's a big part to play because, like I said, even from Miss England days, they just assumed that my family is going to be so barbaric and educated and fully in burqas. But this is actually also a headline from me. But my great grandmother never wore a burqa.
Mm.
Neither did my grandmother. Why did they
Yeah.
expect me to wear it in UK?
Yeah.
That's not the Afghanistan. Like, it's propaganda, it's media, and the media I got to know firsthand because I dealt with them. And they would ask me questions, are you more British or are you more Muslim? They're not the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah.
One is a
I mean,
culture,
I find
one
this
is a
a
religion.
really, yeah, really ridiculous question, full stop, because this is, I feel like probably a lot of people can relate to this, and a lot of people from diverse backgrounds, from somewhere like the UK or even the States. But they're always asking, like, what do you identify more as? Are you more British? Are you more like South
Mhm.
Asian? Are you
Yeah.
more Indian? Are you more Pakistani? It's like, why can't I just be all of those?
Yes.
Why do I have
This is
to
it.
be one? It
Yeah,
doesn't even make sense in this diverse world that we're living
they
in.
always try to vilify us. The questions would
Mhm.
be like, do you have a boyfriend? Now, if I said yes,
Astaghfirullah.
you're a Muslim. Are Muslim people allowed to have
Oh,
relationships outside of marriage? Da, da, da? If I said no, it'd be like, do your
just a
parents
princess.
suppress you? Are you not allowed? Is it because they will, like, you will have repercussions? Would your culture shun you? Are they this barbaric? It's like, where do you win? Where is the winning here? So it was always from that point they tried to, like, what's she gonna say? Which side
Yeah.
can we vilify? And it's always been that, and to this day it's that. I see it, and that's why I feel now I'm older, I'm maturer, I have a world of experience under my
Yeah.
belt when it comes to media, when it comes to people, when it comes to
Mm.
propaganda and governments and politics. So, some of the significant things that you said that really stood out to me. When I was 18 and Miss England, after Tony Blair, when Gordon Brown came into power, they really took an interest in me. They nominated me to be Goodwill Ambassador
Mm.
for Middle East, for UN. That was a huge deal at my age. I kindly rejected that. I was honored, but I was too young. And
Mm.
I didn't want to be a puppet or manipulated.
Mm.
I knew that I wasn't going to be taken seriously. So I didn't want to do it then. So I backed out. I did the right thing, I believe. That
Mm.
was something that was very amazing. And since then, I've done many projects. So it was most after the fall of Afghanistan that my
Mm.
help was required. I mentored for Google and YouTube, so I'm a consultant for them, for refugees who are
Mm.
in social media and YouTubers and content creators,
Right.
Afghan refugees in particular. I work with the Albanian government for their refugee integration programs. I work with Qatar government with their, again, refugee integration programs, and an
Nice.
advisor and a consultant. I work very closely with the British government as well. I'm part of a women's coalition of Afghan women in the UK, where we
Wow.
did a march, a rally in November last year. And from
Mm.
that, it had a snowball effect to then the Labour government actually adapting our policies as part of their new scheme for
Mm.
Afghan women. So
Wow.
they actually now have opened, and there's an APPG, a cross-party parliamentary group for Afghanistan,
Yeah.
because of the work that we put in as our women's
Yeah.
coalition. And also our policies have been adapted to a specific committee that's organized by Labour government,
Mm.
shadow government, for Afghan women. And this is the achievements and the work and the efforts that I've been putting since
So,
2021.
when people say, like, what's the point? When you say, you need to do something, and, this mindset, it's very typical. It's, what's the point? Nothing's going to change. But you're actually a testament. The work that you're doing is a testament to that is the point. There is an actual point, and there is strength in voices. There are strength in numbers. And the
Mhm.
more people that, actively pursue, like, their passions and the causes that really, it could be anything, but you can make a difference. But you have to have that level of numbers to bring around those changes.
Yes, absolutely. And also, it's exactly, it's about coming together, and it's a very slow process, unfortunately. So you have to
Mm.
be patient. And a lot of the women that are involved, they're incredible women. We have a few politicians, we have scientists, and it's all Afghan women. What we're
Mm.
tired of as Afghan women is that people are speaking for us. Why are you speaking for us? There are Pakistani
Mm.
women that represent us. There are Iranian women that represent us. There
Mm.
are Arab women that represent us. But why are there no Afghan representation?
Yeah.
How are you making decisions for Afghan women without getting Afghan women involved? Because we have
Mm.
lawyers, we have politicians, we have doctors,
Exactly.
we have scientists, data analysts, we spokespeople, advocates, media personalities. We're a whole community, and we're very capable
Mm.
and we're highly educated. Why is everyone always speaking for us? When are we
Yeah.
going to get our platform to speak for ourselves?
And you're
Um,
creating that platform. And
this is
so
what we're fighting
that's
for.
it.
We
Yeah.
want to be
You're not
involved in the
waiting.
decision making when it comes to Afghan women. Don't make
Mm.
decisions. A bunch of white males in a room shouldn't be making decisions on Afghan women. They don't have a clue about our culture. So why?
Well, I think we'll find they shouldn't be making decisions at all at this point. Like everything's a
Absolutely. I
mess.
mean, they can't. Yeah, it's they tend to get involved in places that are not their jurisdiction all the time. But
Absolutely.
there needs to be an end to this. And if you're going to do this, at least do it with a few Afghan women by your side to give yourself some credibility.
Well, I feel like they kind of did it with the government, didn't they? Put a few South Asians in there or Asians and said, "Hey, we're diverse," and
Yeah,
there you
and
go.
then we're going to
Um,
send all the refugees back to Rwanda. But we're so diverse.
this honestly, we could have episodes and episodes just on this. Um, I just one of the last things. Can you share like a particularly impactful or heartwarming moment for you, like throughout your journey? So from Hamasa, when you started at 18 into this a world of spotlight to Hamasa now, what was that defining pivotal moment for you that had the most impact and shaped like your values and shaped the way that you are now?
I mean, of course, Miss England was a big part of it because it opened my eyes to a whole different world. It
Mm,
made me understand how politics works. And I
right.
think that's very important to understand because that's what makes the world go round. And if you understand the political game, then you know what's happening like
Mm,
10 steps ahead. Oh, yeah,
yeah.
there's a war here. But what's the reason for that war? What exactly is
Yeah.
being done behind the scenes of that war? And that was obviously a great time. But for me, I think the most defining point is that when August 2021 happened and the Taliban came to take over, I felt like everything I had done up until that point was for myself. I
Mm,
wanted, like, I did the activism, I did the work, but I did it because I was very passionate about my job to be a model, to be a beauty queen, whatever. And so it gave me a platform.
mm,
But when I had a personal part to play in evacuating people from
mm,
Afghanistan, I was part of Operation Magic Carpet. There's one operation, the Qatari evacuations, when they took people out to Qatar, a few other evacuations, that I was in a position to do so is
mm,
when I realized that, okay, everything that I've done up until now may have been for me, but it also gave me the platform and open doors. So now that I can do it for my people. And
yeah.
I'm so happy and glad and fortunate to be in a position that I could raise their voices on a
Mm,
global platform. I did a lot of interviews at that time. I get given that opportunity because of my personal achievements. Had I not done as much as my culture may have thought that I may be prostituting or whatever I'm doing with modeling, at the end of the
mm,
day, this is the result of all those years of hard work. I've been
yeah.
modeling for 24 years, is coming up.
Mm,
I started modeling in the year 2000 and it's going to be 2024. And I'm
wow.
still working. That again is is just August 2021 made me realize that all the things I've done was because of this. This is my calling. This is my purpose. I thought modeling was my calling. I thought Miss England was my
Mm,
purpose and I did it and great. No, no, no. Those things were just steps to get to
yeah.
where I am today so I can actually make the real difference in the world. So I could actually really help the people that need it the most.
Yeah.
This is the most rewarding part of what I've done or what I've achieved. At that time, I believed that those achievements were great. I'm going to Miss World. Woo,
Yeah, of
so
course.
much
Yeah.
fun. Or I did Vogue magazine, or I did this campaign, or I'm on a billboard. This is my purpose. No, that I don't feel that. I feel that my purpose now is to help
Yeah.
and to give back. And all the things that I did is so I could, is so that I do have a voice, so I do have a platform. And I want to use it in the best possible way to help those that need it the most.
I love that. So, Hamasa, just before we finish, two things. One is if people do want to get involved,
Mhm.
or if people do want to, if we have Afghani listeners out there, if anybody wants to be more proactive, how can they go about doing that?
I think it's important because the Afghan diaspora is very active. They're
Mm,
very good. I work with many girls and boys from around the world, Germany,
yeah.
America, Canada, Australia. To just, at the moment, there's a very terrible earthquake going on in Afghanistan,
Yes.
in the Herat
Yeah.
province. In fact, another one occurred this morning, a second
Oh,
one. So
I
it's
didn't know
very
that one.
dire and bad. I have my own charity, the Roshan Foundation, that my mom and I
Right.
actually opened literally a year after I won Miss England, and we're very proactive in that as well. Um, it's just to get involved with what the Afghans are doing and making our just the support, like you said, the change comes when it's numbers. So when we have our
Mm,
rallies, when we go out there and fight and scream and shout, come and stand with us and scream and shout with us,
mm,
amplify our voices. We need more allies. We're a very small community. Like the Iranian
mm,
community has a lot of celebrities, a lot of businessmen. There's a lot of money. They're a lot more well integrated into the Western societies, so they can make a difference. Same with the Pakistani community, same with the Indian
mm,
community, because bear in mind, we're the first generation of Afghans in the West.
mm,
Whereas with the Pakistani community, Indian community, it's like third, fourth generation.
mm,
So they're a lot
mm,
more established, they're a lot more settled, they're a lot more integrated. There's a lot of, you don't see many Afghan doctors, but there is hundreds and thousands of South Asian doctors or
mm,
lawyers and things. So we need allies. We're small, we're new. It's my generation, the first generation, that's finding our feet and are trying to make some noise and make a difference. So just getting involved in any of the charities, we're fighting for women's and girls' rights. Afghanistan is the only country in the world that doesn't have women's education in 2023.
yeah.
Like we're at the moment we're campaigning to have a global summit for Afghan women, where the international community comes together,
Mm,
governments such as Qatar, because they're very fundamental in
mm,
negotiations with the Taliban, Turkish government, Pakistan government, other Muslim countries
mm,
that need to come together, because what the Taliban are doing in Afghanistan isn't Islam. We all know that.
mm,
The Taliban and Islam isn't Islam. So other Islamic,
mm,
this is making all of us collectively look bad. This is a
yeah.
bad reflection on Iran and Indonesia and all of them. We're all looking
Mm,
bad because the Taliban is like, they're looking at us as these barbaric, crazy terrorists. We need to shake that up, and other Muslim
yeah.
countries need to come together and be allies with us and let the world know that this isn't what we stand for. In Islam, women are so well respected. They've given such a high place, and we need the world to know that.
Absolutely. Well, you can also follow Hamasa on Instagram. You're also right now, Hamasa has launched a collection of Afghani outfits. At the moment, there are proceeds that are going towards the earthquake victims in Afghanistan if you do purchase from there. So there are lots of avenues. And again, if you want to message Hamasa directly or through her Instagram, I'm sure she'll be more than willing and happy to put you in touch with who you need to get in touch with. Hamasa, just before we go,
Mhm,
my last question that I like to ask all my guests
mhm.
is actually what's brown got to do with it? Like, what does it mean, figuratively speaking, to be brown to you? What has brown got to do with it for you?
I love my brownness. I love the melanin in me. I'm so proud of it. I believe that for me, as you heard throughout my story, that me being a brown person played a huge part and a role in my entire career. And I think what differed me from the other beauty queens essentially was my values and my
Mm,
morals and what I stand for and how I carry myself. And I believe those are to do a lot with my brown culture. and how I've been
Yeah.
brought up and what I've been taught and what's important. Family is important. Where you're from is important. My
Yeah.
parents always told me, don't forget where you come from. Those things made me who I am. I speak the way I speak because of my brown culture. I fight for my culture. So brown's got
Yeah.
everything to do with it. I am such a proud brown person. So to me,
Oh,
it's a big part to play.
yeah.
I think authenticity is very important, and you should
Yeah.
never deny where you come from.
Yeah. And I think, you'll find that lots of people are accepting that more and more, especially our generation, that,
Absolutely.
we can hold different, um,
There is room for
we can
everybody.
feel, yeah,
Yeah,
you can feel
have
British
that side of you
and
to
you can
fit in.
feel, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's like whenever I deal with anyone British and they say, it's like, "Well, how do you, it's like, I'm happy to be here. It's my host country. Of course, I respect, like, my British side has given me a lot of opportunities and taught me a lot of things. But alongside that, it's my values from my brown side that kept me grounded,
Yeah,
kept me
absolutely.
focused. So I
Yeah.
appreciate and value both. And
Yeah.
had I
You
not
can
had
take the best of both worlds, right? That's
exactly.
the
They shouldn't
beauty
be
of
this
it.
like exactly like my Miss England speech. Why are we separating it? When two
Yeah.
things come together, they're so much better and stronger. So my brown side complements my western side very well, and vice versa. I don't look at them as two separate entities.
I love that. I'm going to use that quote, Hamasa,
Thank you so
on
much.
the page. Well, thank you so much for joining today and good luck with everything. And I really, hope that we can create more awareness on these really, really important issues and help as a community, everyone, as you said, stand together and help each other. So
Absolutely.
thank you, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.